Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to be joined by Keith Mullins, a singer-songwriter and music producer from Cape Breton. How are you,
Hi,
Keith?
John. Hey, very good. Thanks for contacting me.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this because so I did contacted you I think last month, right after I interviewed Isabella Sampson,
Uh-huh.
your friend, collaborator, and winner of the Canadian Folk Music Awards.
hmm
And you said you are going on tour, and you did a few shows with her. So tell me how that went.
Oh, it was great. Here in Canada, like it's been a tough couple of years. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know what it's been like for you in Vietnam, but we basically like all shows have been canceled. We're
Mm.
mostly, and we've done a lot. We did a lot of work on Zoom. We did a lot of work, from home, but live shows have been canceled. So I just found that this month in particular
Mhm.
been just like a storm of and wave of a huge amount of shows, and constantly being contacted to play shows. And so I think I had about 25 gigs this month. I'd say I only had about 3 days off the whole month,
Wow.
and that would be one of them would be today. So glad to put in a call to you. And we've been talking about it for a while.
Oh yeah. Just to be clear, I actually was in Canada during COVID. I was studying there. I was in Peterborough at the time. I've finished my studies now, and now I'm back in my hometown. Yeah.
And were you at CBU?
Uh, Come again? Sorry.
Were you at CBU?
No, no, I wasn't. I haven't been able to visit Cape Breton. No, but
Where was your study?
Peterborough, Ontario.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And how did you find? I mean, I saw the interview, but how did you got how did you get connected to Isabella?
Well, let's see. So one of Peterborough's local acts is a fiddler. She's 15, turning 16 this year. You may know her by the name Irish Millie. She was nominated for the same award that Isabella later won. So I thought of checking her out. So
So
that's
that
how I
sent you
got.
down a rabbit hole. Right.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's how it is. And Millie, her fiddle playing style is Cape Breton. It's from the Cape Breton area. So I started to
Uh-huh.
explore the musicians who are playing the Cape Breton tradition, including one Natalie McMaster. She's apparently a very big deal where you are.
She is. She is a very. I played with Natalie before.
Oh,
Uh, she's amazing. She's one of the best.
yeah, I
Yeah.
interview her, and she's really nice as well.
Yeah, definitely. Very sweet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's how
Yeah.
I,
So
yeah.
it's very interesting, and you sometimes I've seen over the years. I've been playing music for a living since I was about 14 or 15.
Uh-huh.
I'm 44 now, and I've toured. All my tours have been a lot across Canada, and I've toured in the US and Europe. I've never played in Asia. Never played in like Australia or Russia or anything. But yeah, like the Cape Breton music tradition, it's very interesting. Everybody in my family plays. And my grandfather was a fiddler. He had a television show here, like in like the '60s. It was just
Mm.
like local television. But he was on a very popular show called the Don Messer Show. And my aunt plays fiddle, and my other aunt plays piano and sings, and she play all night long. And
Mhm.
yeah, my first cousin would be Gordy Sampson. He wrote a song called "Jesus Take the Wheel" for Carrie Underwood,
Ah.
uh, and he's written a number of hits in Nashville. He lives in Nashville and in Cape Breton, and
Mm.
has always been a big mentor to me, and it's like and on the production side as well. Um, So, and there's lots of musicians in my family, and there's lots of musical families, and one thing about the, the fiddling tradition. So like when you think of Cape Breton fiddling, you think mostly it would be like Northwest Cape Breton, where Natalie McMaster, Buddy McMaster, Ashley McIsaac, all those fiddlers that became very well known are from Northwest Cape Breton.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of families, and that play music. And also when we have people from Ireland and Scotland in particular, that come to Cape Breton, there's a huge festival here. It's called Celtic Colors. It happens in October every year.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what they do is they take musicians, Celtic musicians from around the world, and they make them collaborate with Cape Breton musicians, basically. So what ends up happening is you have all these people from a lot of the time, most of like people from Scotland that come, and they might hear some tunes, some fiddle tunes, and they'll say, wow, like that reminds me of the way my great grandfather played, or my grandpa played. So in Scotland and Ireland and all these places, they were always modernizing music, changing tunes to fit the times. Whereas in Cape Breton, it's been more, up until very recently, it's been very strict, and it's been and it's been because people are holding on to the language so tightly, holding on to the Gaelic and the old language, that they and holding on to the tunes and the dances and all that stuff. They're doing it in this certain way, and so it never really evolved. It just stayed, all the tunes stayed the same for a really, really long time, because in the culture they're holding on to it so tightly that they teach it the exact same way, and people, they're not really being modernized.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have all these people from Scotland and Ireland that come down, and they want to learn the old way to play, and that's by coming to Cape Breton. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. If I may quiz you on the history a bit, how and when did the Scottish and the Irish began to settle in the Cape Breton area and surrounding?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to Google it, but it's been a while.
Okay. Well,
okay.
well,
So how old is? Okay, let's go there then. I mean, if I wouldn't want to say the wrong thing. So Canada is only like what, 150, 200 years old, right?
yeah.
Canada.
Yeah, it celebrated its 150th anniversary probably in my first or second year of university. So 2017, 18.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's come to Britain. Between 1773 and 1850, tens of thousands of Gaels made the journey across the Atlantic Ocean to settle in eastern Nova Scotia and Cape Breton.
Wow.
They tended to settle amongst their own groups, people who came from a particular area of Scotland. And you'll notice like a lot of the names of, little towns and stuff in Cape Breton are the same names as places in Scotland,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing you grew up around this music scene and sound, the Cape Breton sound.
Yeah, like for me, I'm educated in drums, but I always wrote songs, and I always played guitar, and I always played piano, but the reason why I played drums was because nobody in my family played drums. And that way I could stay on the drums without anyone, like if I was playing with my family and playing guitar, then my first cousin's Gordy Sampson, I'm going to pass him the guitar. He's amazing. You know what I mean? But if I was playing drums, nobody would take the drums away from me. I just wanted to play music all night long, ever since I was very young. So I went from there, and after I graduated high school, I learned how to read music. I went to Dalhousie. I got a degree in classical music. And then as I was doing that, I found a huge love for Cuban music. So
Oh,
I went down to Cuba. I studied for 4 months with different drummers in the streets. I studied with Santeria priests,
wow.
uh,
Oh,
and we were singing in Yoruba, which comes from Nigeria. Came over with slaves in the 1500s from West Africa, and we're playing religious drums. And I was in ceremonies with goat heads and snakes. And then
wow.
I also was in I studied in Ghana in West Africa. And and for me, like, I think, I'm the kind of guy, like, I never ever judged anyone. Like, even when I was a kid, I would never judge anyone by the color of their skin. I would more judge them if they were a nice person or not a nice person, and I was always the kind of guy that would hang out or talk to anybody. I love people and I love talking to people,
Mhm.
and I'm interested, genuinely interested in what life is like for them. And so I basically, like, I would, like, I was 22. I had a little bit of savings. I went down to Cuba and I just started approaching people. I would see a drummer play and I would approach them. I'd be like, I love the way you play. I'd like to study with you, and this was back in 2002. So I'd be like, I can give you $10 a lesson, and but I want to study with you every day for 2 weeks or something like that.
Mhm.
And then I would learn from these people, all these different people that I studied with, and for me, I really wanted to, if you look at Cuba from a tourist perspective, or you look at the way that you came to Canada, like, you spend a considerable amount of time. You really learn. You really, like, you talk to people on you have supper with people. You all these things that you do. Like, it's not like you're not in and out in a week where you're just, like, getting, like, a very quick image
Mhm.
of what a country is like, or what a people are like, or a culture is like.
Yes.
you know for me, I go in and pay respect, learn one-on-one, how to do the proper things, like, to see, 1,000 people walking down the street, like, extremely slowly in Havana, Cuba. That's part of learning their culture, and learn, buying food at the market, and cooking food with the things that they cook food with, or, like. So for me, I really loved paying huge respect to the culture, huge respect to the people, learning, the language, learning the all those things, and then it makes me a better person on the other side, you know. And then, and I'm doing this. I'm kind of like doing the same thing now, with our Indigenous people
Yeah.
in Canada, where I'm, learning the language slowly. I'm learning about the community. I'm learning about their ways, and and it makes me a better person on the other side.
Awesome. That's incredible to hear. I mean, I expected that you would have some knowledge about the Cape Breton sound, but I didn't expect that your sphere of influence would be so eclectic. And yes, I do agree about how we should not be parochial people, in that we shouldn't be the type that believe that we can only learn from the culture and religion and history of the places that we were brought up in. It's very important to take from or learn from other cultures too, because those are the stuff that people value. And culture is not a tangible property. It requires living people to pass it down on the next generation. That's what I find. And of course, the Cape Breton tradition is one of them. But I'm
Mhm.
gonna get to that more in a bit. But you know, you mentioned how you were never brought up have to harbor prejudice against people who look different from you, and I thought that this is something that I'm probably gonna be interested in, is that how do people first learn about racism? For me, at
Yeah.
least, perhaps you and I are the lucky people who got to learn from it as maybe as kids via books. Mine
Mhm.
was that there was a text about Nelson Mandela and the fight against apartheid. Um, Other people in either different historical periods or in different regions were not as lucky, because probably the first time that they experienced racism was when they experienced it firsthand.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe, I think I get it from my mom, really. Is just my mom is just very um genuinely interested in people, and in engaging with people, anyone. I'm the kind of guy, like, I'll talk to anybody. If there's, sometimes if there's a homeless person on the street, and they ask me for money, and I'll be like, hey, I'm just going in. You want a sandwich? You know what I mean? Like, or I might, say, hey, you doing? Or like, I'm very willing to talk to anybody.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of Cape Breton culture too, is the a willingness to talk to anyone.
Yeah. Speaking of indigenous culture, I know that one of your close friends and mentees is Morgan Tony. Um,
Yeah,
I hope I'm pronouncing this right. He's of Mi'kmaq origin and
yeah,
man,
yeah. That's good.
Mi'kmaq. Yeah. He manages to blend the Cape Breton sound with the sound of his indigenous nation,
Right.
which I find to be a very unique combination.
Mhm.
Tell me about your musical collaboration with him, as well as your personal relationship with
Yeah,
him.
it's super interesting. We call it Migamaltic.
Ah,
Uh, really, which is really a style of music that we invented, I guess, or maybe we're part of the very first, you know, maybe 5 or 10 creators, because I've played with indigenous musicians over the years, and I knew, like, I've known the songs, songs they play at powwows, the songs they play in public, and I've heard a bunch of them, but mostly I've only known them, and I've also known that the Celtic tradition is strong in indigenous communities in Cape Breton. Well, we have a champion fiddler that used to spend time with my granddad, and he's taken some lessons, and also my aunt Flo played with him. He's an indigenous fiddler. His name is Lee Cremo, and he would have passed away. Oh man, like maybe in the '90s or something like that. But he was a Canadian champion fiddler, an amazing fiddler. So I did know that the Cape Breton music was strong in indigenous communities. I've also played with indigenous singers, Mi'kmaq singers, where they play a drum. But I had never heard such a direct mix of the two as when I heard Morgan uh, played the fiddle and played a fiddle line to the Gojwa. And if you look up, any of your listeners can look up the Gojwa. It's spelled Kojua by Morgan Tony, and that's basically, like, if you listen to it, it's like Morgan on fiddle, Morgan on vocals, and me playing all the other instruments behind him. So I heard Morgan play the Gojwa for the first time, and I just looked at him and I was like, oh my God, like, I need to record that. I
mhm,
can't, it was just an idea that he had, and it made total sense because fiddling music had been so strong in communities. There's just been such a beautiful focus on indigenous music. Um, I mean, that it's real, because it's just like, it just makes complete sense, and there's not very many people that have mixed the two, you
mhm.
know. Um, So we started this journey together, you know, and when the pandemic happened, this studio that I'm in right now is called Burn Bria Studios.
Yes.
And I live across from Ben Bria, which is the home of Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone.
Yes.
He's buried in Ben Bria right now. And some of his descendants still live there. But and I see them around town, especially in the summers. So I built this studio during the pandemic when I lost a tour of the United Kingdom. I lost a huge gig with a huge corporate gig, would have been my best paying gig I ever had in my life. And I lost all kinds of work. And so I was like, am I going to be a plumber? Am I going to be a carpenter? What am I going to do here? I have 4 kids. And so this was the last ditch effort and I applied for a few grants from a local organization that helps musicians. They're called CB Mike. And I got them all. And one grant was for Isabella, one grant was for Morgan, and one grant was for another guy named Jesse Cox.
Yeah.
And so during the pandemic, I made albums for them. I also made an album with a rapper from Toronto. His name is D.O. Gibson. And I made a solo record that I haven't released yet. And I made another solo record where I wrote and recorded 6 songs with veterans of veteran stories.
Yeah.
And I released that record on Bandcamp already, just like about a month ago or so. And basically, like, veterans came in, told me their story, and we wrote a song together. And then I took it to my studio and recorded. So basically, those 6 albums are basically that's what I did during the pandemic. So I got those 3 grants for Jesse and Isabella and Morgan, and had them in and co-wrote most of the songs. If I felt that they needed to be co-wrote, depending on, the stage of where each song was. And then just played each instrument on, what you do in a studio, what you can do is just layer everything on top. Like if you ever watch someone with a looper, that's basically what you do, but you can really take your time with it and make it decent. Yeah. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you about the barn, and because Isabella mentioned it to me, and I thought, well, he built this barn by himself, and that's just incredible. And I was gonna ask if you are recording from the barn itself, which you've already answered, and from the look of it, the interior is just fascinating.
It's kind of messy, but the drum set is there. Oh, and then I've got that's the loft up there. I just store stuff up there, but yeah, it's been good. It's nice to have a space where I can come and work. I have my gear. I don't have a lot of gear, but what I have is really good, really high quality gear. So these, right here, I'll flip the screen around here. So like these preamps, this is a Neve 1073, and this here preamp here is my brother hand built that. And so basically, like all the studios, all the best studios in the world, they have a Neve 1073. What they probably have 16 of them or 24 of them or something like that. Whereas I only have. So, so I can record, and there's a microphone. I have like a, is it in here? Yeah, and I have like Neumann microphones, which are like the best, that would be used in all the best studios in the world. And but I have like I have like 3 lines that I could use them for. So, you're going to get that quality in my studio but I don't have any other, like, I don't use any other gear. I just send it off to my mix master guy, and
Yeah.
he takes care from there.
Mhm. Yeah. How's the acoustics in that studio in the barn?
It's all, and it's really well insulated.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's, that's how you get a good sound. And I have some sound panels that I kind of arrange in a certain way to get a good sound. So yeah, it's
Mhm. Yeah, I'm planning to get in touch with both Jesse Morgan and your friend Theo Gibson. But yeah, but I'd like to ask you if what's your experience like being like a mentor to all these great musicians, all these talented people?
yeah. I think the pandemic. Excuse me. I think the pandemic was a really great reset for me.
Mhm.
Um, I when I w- before the pandemic, I was playing, maybe an average of like 4 or 5 shows a week, and um, most of it was alone by myself. So when I play, like, I'll play a bass drum on my foot, I play a tambourine on the other foot, I play my guitar, and my two bottom strings are like a bass guitar. So I'll play bass with my thumb and guitar with my fingers, and I'll play harmonica and sing all at the same time.
Mm.
And um, but what I missed about that is that I wasn't playing with anybody. And I'm a player. I love to play with people. I
Yeah.
love to engage people through music.
Yeah.
And sometimes, depending on the gig, I wasn't getting. If I have like, if everybody in the audience is singing, I'm good. I'm good to go.
Mhm.
But sometimes that's not the way it works out. And so the pandemic was like, okay, how can I play with people all the time? Always have someone that I'm playing with.
Yeah.
you know so this mentoring process was a way to lift them up, to make maybe their first record sound like they've been making records for years,
Mhm.
and an opportunity to collaborate with people and learn and be inspired. And so it's not I'm not only being a mentor, I'm also learning a lot and being inspired. So, and because that's what I love to do. That's why I do what I do, is to engage with people through music, which is the best thing that I know how to do.
Awesome. Yeah, and you learn from them too, the people whom you've helped create records with.
That
Yeah. Tell me about the hat that you're wearing.
Do you know Iona? Do you know where Iona is?
No, please tell me.
Okay, Iona is like, there's a little. If you look on the map of Cape Breton, there's like a little island in the middle of
Hmm?
Cape Breton, and I don't know if it's a complete island or not. I think it is, though. Yep, you can take a ferry over there, but I feel like there's a way. Maybe there's a bridge there. I'm not really sure, but I think it's an island within Cape Breton. It's called Iona,
Yeah.
and I think that it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. It's really popular.
Yeah. Uh,
So,
sorry. You.
send a voicemail.
Okay. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay.
Iona. Yeah, you were talking about Iona.
Yeah, spectacular, beautiful places I've ever been to. And I love the people there. They're down to earth people, and they like to have fun as well, and they love music, so it works for me.
Yeah, that's great. I was gonna, yeah, I was gonna ask you about what life was like during the pandemic, but again, you answered that for me. But here's another question. How do you balance the life of a musician who I presume involves a lot of traveling to being a family man?
um I have a very supportive family. For one, they're um yeah, they're just very supportive of me and what I do, and they're fans too. And my kids play music, so they understand.
Yeah.
Uh, but it can be a struggle sometimes, especially in a month, you know, like July, when the pandemic is over and everybody wants music. You
Mhm.
know, it is definitely tough to balance. You know, if someone is offering you whatever amount of money, it's hard to say no, because you don't, because maybe another wave is going to happen. Like, you're like, oh God, I better get these in while I can, because who knows if we're going to have it again next year or not.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's a balance, and we work it out, and I try to make sure there's always a date night. That really helped. But Tracy is my best. I'm a very lucky man.
Awesome. Yeah. I'd like to hear more about how you impart your love of music to your children. Yeah.
Oh, sure. So I might be a video or two of my two oldest boys. So I have four,
Mhm.
and two oldest boys are very traditions. I would say they're 14 and 12. And my 12-year-old is a very strong piano player. He's been taking lessons he took lessons from when he was 5 until he was 10, and then lessons. But he still plays every day. He plays all the time, and I've never ever forced him to do anything. He just has a natural love for it, love for
Mhm.
piano, and he's like he learns like video games. He'll learn all the songs from those video games,
Oh.
or he'll find songs that he like. He does a lot of learning from YouTube. And then he just got for his birthday, so now he's into playing bass. My older son is he's a guitarist. He's like me, everything. He plays piano. He's a decent piano player. He's a good guitar player.
Mhm.
He's really learning songs. Uh, um, he's always asking me. He's like, "Come on, Dada, let's go write a song," or
Mhm.
or "Come on, Dada, let's go to the studio. I want to work on my singing and my vocal range. I want to work on my guitar playing. Can you teach me something on guitar?" And he's very like Grady is more like, "Come on, Dada, teach me this." Finn is more like, if Finn asks me to teach him something, I have to get in and get out because
Yeah.
yeah, and he loves to work it out on his own.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to do that because I remember from my childhood, I've never been interested in music like seriously until I reached the age of 13. Because I remember my parents wanted me to learn the piano, but I had zero interest in doing it. I'm trying to do it now, but chances are, I'll just be able to play to my heart's content rather than doing it publicly. Uh, but I would like to return to the subject of collaboration because the way I see it, because of the popularity of, I guess, singer-songwriter music, we often associate the process of creating music with isolation and solitude, like where you have this lone troubadour just strumming on his or her guitar and singing about whatever that ails them that day or that month.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
but but there are other images to be associated with music creation as well, such as the orchestra and even the jazz quartet or quintet, which implies collaboration. And you mentioned recording and producing for a rap artist before. The way I see
Yep.
it, hip hop, the people who were, I guess, who the spotlight belongs to were DJs and hip hops, and the rappers they were the supporting act. and eventually you get like the rapper DJ collaborations, like Eric B and Rakim or Grandmaster Flash and the Five. But eventually, but after that, especially today, you don't really get rap groups anymore, let alone rap bands. That's one example, the Roots. But for the most
Right.
part, you have lone rappers, and
Uh,
yeah, and so yeah. Tell me about how the value of collaboration in music creation, since you are a musician and I'm just a music
uh,
fan.
I find it super exciting. I think thing. I love good something that's written well. I love whether it's no matter what style it is. A lot of hip hop guys. I'm not a fan of like the braggy hip hop that talk about drugs and sex and all that stuff.
Me neither.
To me, I find it lazy
Yeah.
because they know it's going to do well. They know it's going to be successful or going to be shocking or so when they're bragging or like all that stuff, it's not really my thing.
Mhm.
I really love when someone is clever with a lyric, no matter if it's hip hop or heavy metal or anything. If they can say something that can reach a lot of people and be clever and be interesting, I find that very exciting, no matter what style of music it is. When I was 8 years old, my big brother said to me, Keith, you don't like music. I play, I played a lot. Even like I was playing piano when I was 5. He said, you don't like music, but what he meant was you don't like the music that's on the radio.
Yeah.
And that was on the radio. But when we had family parties and, I was like 5 or 6 years old, you couldn't get me away from the piano, from being at my aunt's side, singing and playing along and getting together. And I grew up playing like jazz, blues, Cape Breton music, singer-songwriter music, country, rock, whatever style, was being played, it never mattered. And I think that's why I find like these new kinds of fusions, where I'm like kind of like a singer-songwriter, folk roots kind of guy and producer. Like all my productions are like that. They're very rootsy and kind of earthy and percussion based as well. Like I love a good groove. And so that really makes sense, when I connect with Dio Gibson and we start making music together, it kind of ends up being like this rootsy kind of hip hop, and also it's not released yet, but I'll send you the album that we have.
Oh yeah, sure.
And you can see for yourself, but it ends up being this rootsy, folksy hip hop kind of vibe.
Yeah, well, I love to hear it. So were you able to keep yourself overall healthy during the COVID era? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a health nut, a bit of a health nut. I play basketball.
Nice.
Usually play like I still play. I'm 44, but I still play maybe two to three times a week on average, I'd say. Sometimes if I'm on the road for 2 weeks, obviously I can't. But and I love good food. We have a very probably I'd say it's 17 feet by I think it's about 40 feet long, a greenhouse.
Wow.
And we have a lot of vegetables growing, and that's my wife Tracy that does that. But I love to eat good food, and when I'm on the road, like I never eat fast food. I haven't eaten McDonald's in years. So I'm always, I have like I limit myself to one coffee, one like good latte every day. And I just have these like some rituals that I'll never like, Yeah, especially when I'm on the road, because being on the road, it's very demanding.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think it's all fun and games and you're just playing music, but when you're set up and your sound check and all the stresses that come with being on the road and driving for 8 hours, or it's very much like like an athlete schedule, in that it's very rigorous and you're pushing yourself very. Usually if I go on the road for 2 weeks, it usually takes me about two days to kind of recover from being on the road, because it's very demanding and it's hard on your head, but it's worth it. So much worth it. So if I can eat well, I always like put in my rider that there's a fruit tray and some healthy snacks. And I try and buy snacks in the grocery store, so that, if I'm in a town where there's like nothing but fast food available, I'll just snack on some fruit and some nuts, and that'll keep me going.
Oh yeah, that sounds really good. A story that I've not shared on the air before involving McDonald's is that I went on a vacation in Montreal probably 2 or 3 years ago. It was around my birthday, which is in October. I think around the first or second day I was very sick, so I I didn't thought of buying groceries to cook for myself. So I end up eating McDonald's maybe 2 or 3 times per day, and then it just got worse. And so ever since ever since getting back from that vacation from Montreal to Peterborough, yeah, I haven't had McDonald's since. Yeah.
Well, like I also love eating at like Vietnamese place, or a Thai place, or Indian, like
Yeah.
a good curry like that, or a banh mi, or there's like all those like a lot of the Asian restaurants and stuff are so great because they're usually well priced,
Yeah.
and they're great food, good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy Vietnamese food. That's my favorite part of the culture that I was brought up in.
What
Mm,
Okay, so if I went to a Vietnamese restaurant,
yeah.
what would you say? Like, have you gone to very many in Canada?
Um, there's one in Peterborough that I frequented, and maybe a couple in Toronto and Vancouver. I
And
tried to yeah.
how close would you say they are to Vietnam, to food you would
Um,
get in Vietnam restaurant?
some are closer than others, but of course, if you want the authentic experience, at least what I find is that it's the best that you find in Hanoi, because the what Vietnamese food is the fascinating thing about it is that we have 63 provinces compared to, I guess, Canada's 7 or 8 or 9, and each one of them has a signature dish. And so
Uh,
the ones that were famously brought to Canada, I guess, you got the pho and the banh mi and everything. They were either from Hanoi or Saigon, because the people who brought them over were from Hanoi or Saigon. So they were happened to be the most populous cities slash provinces in Vietnam. So I guess if you haven't been to Vietnam, you're likely missing out on quite a bit of Vietnamese cuisine. And I think I admit that I myself am missing out on a lot of Vietnamese cuisine as well, because I haven't been to all of the Vietnamese provinces. So go.
okay, so if you were going to a Canadian Vietnamese restaurant,
Yeah.
and you wanted to be the most authentic Vietnamese, would it be the pho soup, or what would you order if you were in Canada going to a Vietnamese restaurant?
Well, I'll try the pho, obviously. That's and the banh mi as well. Those
Uh-huh.
would be my two favorite items, because they are both from Hanoi. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
and
they
they're
are.
both, you always see them,
Yeah.
in these restaurants. That's like
Well,
standard.
The thing about we don't have a Vietnamese restaurants where we sell all things Vietnamese. We have a pho shop, we have a banh mi stall, and we have small stores that specialize in one specific item. And
Right.
yeah,
Oh, cool. Awesome. Good to know.
yeah. So yeah, I'm glad to be able to share this with you. We are we are obviously exchanging cultures, and we've discussed how that is very much valuable. And
Uh-huh. Especially like for a singer, pho soup is like so
mm,
awesome. If I'm gonna sing and I have soup, it's like it's the best for your vocal cords.
oh, okay. Yeah, I'm glad to know that. And because I don't know about Cape Breton, but where I live, it tends to get really cold, so pho really helps.
Yeah. What's the temperature there today in Celsius?
Well, I'm in Hanoi now, so it's early 30s, but I was talking about Peterborough, Canada, where it get to the negative 20s and 30s.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, but it is fascinating though because even though we have this really hot weather, pho is considered breakfast food. Like people would start their day with that giant bowl
Oh,
of pho, and many of them would just add in spice and chili powder and such just to make it extra spicy. Yeah,
ah, wow. I didn't know that it was a breakfast food. That's interesting. Cool.
yeah. I know that many stalls they set up shop around like 4 or 5 a.m. just to anticipate, either people waking up to start their day or people finishing their night shifts.
I would say that it would be a great breakfast food because it'd be very light. It'd be good to get started, make you feel energized too with the broth and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think too.
Cool.
All right. So I'm guessing the tour that you are taking a bit of a break from is your first in a long time. So did did it take a sort of readjustment period in order for you to finally be settled or adapt to life on the road again?
Yeah, big time. Big time. I remember thinking that I wasn't sure if I was able to do it again.
Hmm.
I had gotten so used to, being home from kids all the time and gotten so used to being home and I love my community and you know, I love what it has to offer.
Hmm.
Um, so I was hesitant whether I wanted to go on the road again
Hmm.
and do, uh, but I have to. I can't afford not to.
Yeah.
And and I do love it, and it's worth all the things that come with, whether it's traveling Canada is huge, as you know, and
Yeah.
it would, or you were in Peterborough, it would take me like about 22 hours to drive to Peterborough from where I'm at.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I also so basically kind of started, I was traveling a little bit at the end of COVID. So I went down to Portugal
Oh.
with more, and I played in Porto, and I played in Kansas City in the United States. And
Hmm.
that was in May.
Hmm.
And I've done probably 7 or 8 trips to Ontario. And they were all were flights. I I didn't have the time to drive.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I had really a very difficult experience in Portugal
Yeah.
because I had come days early, and I had my passport stolen off a flight
Hmm.
from Montreal.
Hmm.
So I showed up in Brussels. I get off the plane, and I had a zip up hoodie.
Hmm.
Whoops, dropped the phone. Sorry. I had a zip up hoodie, and and it was stolen off me on the flight. I don't know how it happened.
Oh, no.
I don't know if my number was down or whatever, and I checked, and I had all our COVID papers. I had all our invitation letters from the government. I had our basically like a letter saying, like an invitation letter from the embassy, like an invitation letter from the organization, and a letter saying that we weren't being paid there. We were being paid by an organization in Canada. Just in case when you cross, you're just telling the border guards that you're not making money there. Not, so I get off the plane, I turn around, I say to the girl at the Air Canada desk, I don't have my passport. Can I go back on the plane and go grab it? She's like, nope, they're cleaning the plane right now. She's like, I was like, what am I gonna do? I have a passport. She's like, it probably won't work. She's like, you can try. And she ended up going back on the plane 3 times to try and find it, and it was not there. And so I ended up going and trying with my picture of my passport. Like, nope. He's like, they're not going to let you in Portugal with a passport.
Okay.
I was like, okay, what do I do? He's like, you got to go to immigration. So I went to immigration. I ended up spending 3 days in an immigration jail in Brussels. And I'll show you. Oh, I don't think I have it. I think my daughter was playing with my wallet. She stole it. I'm going to show you my prison ID. Yeah, so I have a prison ID, and I ended up spending 2 nights in an immigration jail. It was like heavily fortified. They put me in the back of a van with like plexiglass, like a police van. I didn't really eat much. They feed you, but I was really nervous. The main things that I was nervous about was, had I have caught COVID on the flight, or had I had a false positive for COVID, I would have been there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was because it was November. It was like early November, late October, and so the pandemic rules were still full on there. So I was 3 days in isolation. I couldn't leave my room. And when I came out, it was probably like, it was all Afghanis, like mostly in the courtyard. It was probably 30 Afghanis. And I hadn't really eaten much because I was so nervous. Just a couple of pieces of fruit and a piece of bread that tasted like sawdust. And I flew to Portugal and did the gig, and then came home.
Well, so did you got your passport? Like, did you make a new one?
Yep. So yeah, I have a close friend that I'm making an album for. He's a member of Parliament.
Oh, okay.
Canada. His name is Jaime Batiste. He's the first Mi'kmaq member of Parliament in Canadian history, actually.
Oh, wow.
And he's also a singer-songwriter, and I happen to be making an album for him. So of course, I called him right away. I was like, "Hey, Jaime, guess where I am?" So he called the embassy, and I called the embassy as well, of course. And she came out. She was out after the first night, and she came with a passport application, and did all the things. I think it cost me about $1,000, all said and done.
Okay.
And then she came back the next afternoon, and she had a passport for me. And if you see a Canadian passport, it's black.
Yeah. And
this one though was white, and it says right across the front, it says temporary.
Yeah.
And she had come with a camera and took a picture of me in my cell or whatever, in my room. And then she came back on the third day. Well, and would have been like 2 nights sleeping there. And she had a white passport for me. But if you look at my passport now, like it would usually say issued in Canada, or it may be in Sherbrooke, Quebec, I think is our passport. It would say issued by Sherbrooke or issued by Canada.
Mhm.
My passport says issued by Brussels.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh. That's
So I had to send in that white one, and they sent me back a black one.
mhm. Yeah. Well, I haven't had the misfortune of losing important travel documents before, but I know that, well,
That's
since we're sharing since we're sharing bad flight stories, I um I was stuck in Vancouver for probably a week when I during the month of November when I tried to get back from Canada to Vietnam. There's a connecting flight, Toronto to Vancouver, but because there was a snowstorm, we got stuck there for upwards of 3 to 4 hours. And when we finally take off and I landed in Vancouver, I couldn't make it to the connecting flight. And so I was in Vancouver for maybe 3 or 4 days. Thankfully, my parents they were able to book another flight. Um, uh, I had to take a COVID test again, which costs quite a bit.
yeah.
Yeah, they only last you what 72 hours, but
Yeah.
I was like out of my mind at that time. I was stuck in the Vancouver airport for hours and hours trying to look for a solution. But thankfully, I there's a distant relative of mine who lived there, or close to there, Port Coquitlam. That's where she lives.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I was able to stay at her house. And so
Oh, good.
yeah, misfortune and fortune, I guess they go hand in hand.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I'm guessing you. Here's something I want to ask because you tour with the gang Barton Brea, the band. I'm guessing Isabella, Jesse, and Morgan.
Oh,
And again, I haven't been a touring musician, but I assume based on watching This Is Spinal Tap that it involves a lot of time in close quarters where you kind of have to interact with each other. It's one thing to be friendly with each other while you were working and recording for some number of hours, but it's another thing when you have to spend days and days in close quarters with each other, and and you kind of have to know about each other's personal lives a bit. In Vietnamese people, I've known people who are a lot more outgoing than mine, but culturally, we're a lot more reserved. We tend not to divulge our personal lives to strangers, and unless we completely trust them. So I guess my question to you is, yeah. So how was the, I guess, time spent on tour that is not playing music with them? Right.
yeah. Well, I sincerely love Isabella and Jesse and Morgan as people.
Mhm.
Morgan asked me to be his best man at his wedding. Um, and I just love them, and I love my conversations with them. And I would definitely we all divulge personal information with each other. I definitely feel like they're family to me now.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm kind of like
yeah.
you though. Kind of weird. Like I feel like they're my really close friends, but I'm kind of the dad. I'm like, oh, you're 15 minutes late. Come on, get on. Get it together.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm assuming you're the eldest of the group.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of the leader. I would be like, I'm also booking the shows, and I'm doing all the making sure the contracts, the invoices, all the different things are behind the scenes are all happening. Make sure that they, that the venue knows that we want, all the things we want on the, whether it's sandwiches and a fruit tray and, a couple of beers and a bottle of wine, and making sure that the sound guy knows what all our miking is. And so I do all that as well. So, if someone in the band is not keeping up and playing their parts properly, I'm the one to let them know.
Mhm. Yeah. So final question, since we're running out of time. How important is music to you?
It is, that's it's life. It's life. That's, it's, music is a universal language.
Yeah.
I could go to anywhere in the world and figure out something on an instrument that would help the sound of the other, whatever that other instrument is.
Mhm.
It's what I'm good at. I've been doing it, almost every day since I was a kid. And connecting with people and engaging with people through music
Mhm.
is what I do and who I am. It's my whole being. And I don't know if I could live without it. It's like speaking a language, I guess. And it's a language that I love to speak.
Well, couldn't say it better myself. With that being said, thank you very much, Keith Mullins, for your thoughts, your stories, and your headwear, sharing all of them.
Really,
Uh,
really great.
yeah, I really hope we can do this again. It's been a very brilliant, fun conversation, and I hope you take care of yourself, and I wish you luck on the rest of your touring season.
Yeah. Thank you so much, John. Yeah.
Awesome.